Are you going to do it hard? Woo! Good job, Tiny. All right. Well, welcome everybody to our 7th edition of Co-Creating a Beautiful Life series and workshops. Today we are honored to have the beautiful Tina Smith with us, who is going to be speaking about leaving invisible and visible fingerprints behind. We do have a lunch provided courtesy of Lene Aguilar at Academy Mortgage. She had to go, but we appreciate her for that. This is a free event, and all the profits or donations go to our nonprofit that go back into the community. So if you do want to make a donation, there is something up front, or you can always Venmo me. But let's give a warm welcome to the beautiful Tina Smith.
Yay! Oh, you guys, I'm so excited to be here. I don't know if you saw the video advertising the event, but I was really excited in that video.
I love it.
We only took one take, and I was expecting a couple takes, because you look for perfection. And so I was like, I kind of messed up. In my mind, I kind of messed up. I think I mentioned that to Amanda too, and she's like, it's content. It's just content, don't worry about it. And even driving here today, I was telling my son Bridger, I'm not really nervous. I know it's not going to be perfect. I know I'll make a few mistakes. And he said to me, what was your advice?
How many times do I have to say it?
Well, you have to say it out loud so everybody can hear it, because it's very important.
Don't let perfection get in the way of good enough.
Yes, don't let perfection get in the way of good enough. And that, I think, has been my life story, is looking for perfection and being disappointed when I don't hit the mark. And good enough sometimes is a little struggle to realize good enough really is a positive thing, and good enough is good enough. And so, good words of advice from my son. I appreciate that. I'll take credit for raising him very well. My people in my life have always told me a good presentation, a good talk, always makes you laugh. So I accomplished that already, right? So I could probably leave. But then cry a little bit, and I have 2 great friends that showed up I wasn't expecting, so I've already cried just a little bit. And then having you guys leave thinking about something that I've said. And hopefully you all walk away today thinking a little bit about your impression, your fingerprint. And if I do mess up, I'm going to take advice from my father, who during the winter, he was outside in the snow, and he saw that the neighbor in the back was out there kind of watching him. And so my dad was out there, and he was trying to get bird seed in the bird feeders, and it was slippery, and he fell. And instead of panicking like we all do when we mess up and think, who saw me, instead he took the opportunity to do a snow angel in the snow. So think about that next time you may fall or mess up, how you can turn that into something very positive and fun. So if I end up on the floor at any point today, it will be a snow angel. So, I'm sure that all of you woke up this morning, and the first thing you did, whether laying in bed or looking in the mirror, you all were like, oh, damn, these fingerprints, these are nice, right? Everybody did that, right? Every day, right? But I don't think really any of us have thought about the impressions that we leave behind, those fingerprints, and yet they're part of us, right? And they're all unique. We don't have the same fingerprint. Now, I was gonna have everybody do your fingerprint, but it is such a messy process, and you all look lovely today, so I don't wanna actually have red fingers like my son did, but this is his fingerprint. And come on in, sit down.
Wherever you want.
Wherever you want.
Wherever you are hungry, grab a plate.
So we're not going to do this, but I am going to come back to this impression right here. And so fingerprints are unique, but even when we do our same fingerprint twice, as in this case he did, because the first one he was like, that's not a good print. But then he did it again, and it may not still be perfect, but it's good enough, right? It's good enough. But how interesting that even doing it twice, you don't necessarily come up with the same print, and you're not going to. whether you're rushed or distracted or careless, or whether you're mindful and you're leaving an impression behind that is good enough. So, fingerprints, they're comprised of a lot of tiny ridges. And those ridges are arches, loops, or whorls. So I want you guys just to kind of look at your fingerprints a little bit and check those out. There are 3 types of impressions that we're going to talk about today. 2 of them are visible impressions and 1 is invisible. And so we're going to talk first about the patent print right here, the visible one, like what my son Bridger did. Actually, this is his print too. This one is really good enough. This one was really good. But a patent print is visible. It is visible in blood or ink. It's visible on your doors, your windows. You can see it. There's smudges in my house now from adult fingerprints, and those aren't nearly as cute as probably Tiny's fingerprints. Yeah. But let's consider a print, this invisible print. There are invisible prints that become visible, and it happens when you sprinkle it with magnesium powder, right? Anybody watch CSI crime movies and stuff? Generally, none of us keep magnesium powder around the house. I hope not. Okay, Megan does.
You're married to a cop. That doesn't count, okay?
But this is an example of an invisible print turned visible when my son, who showed up late, but he was doing some Easter eggs. So my magnesium powder is the white crayon that you use on your Easter eggs before you dip them in the ink. Now this is actually the second egg. This is the only one I got, but he actually colored 2. And the first one wasn't good enough. It wasn't what he expected. And it's amazing how sometimes we think about the impressions, the marks that we leave behind, and once they become visible, we realize how important it is to be mindful of what reaction or what intent we have with that impression, with that act. And then we have the impress print that's visible in soft material or clay or cement like this. And these handprints are, well, one boy got cut off, and here's another one. But anyway, it was my 3 sons and myself. And what's interesting is there used to be another handprint right here, and that print is no longer in my life. And so what I find very interesting on the way traveling here today is how this impressed visible print will change. It doesn't have to stay the same as what it was in that cement. So now these pictures, this isn't just my memories, it's not just moments, it's the significance of all those moments, those impressed moments in my life where I could see visible and invisible impressions that were left behind. It's within the moments of our daily lives, whether it's at work or home, grocery shopping or driving, it's all of the opportunities that we have to make a difference, to have an effect on someone, to experience new relationships, and to make a difference, whether it's in our own lives or in somebody else's lives. Because like fingerprints, we leave visible and invisible impressions behind. So let's begin with what you can't see, the latent print. Latent print, I think of latent as I'm laying down, like you can't see me, I am hiding, right? So latent print is completely invisible. And the latent print, when we think about our background, our experiences, our history, how we were raised, all of those are invisible, right? To the people that we meet, nobody knows our background. Nobody knows what we've been through. Nobody knows the challenges or the success simply by looking at you. But it's within those moments that you can unveil or unveil, yes, veil. Thank you, yeah. Unveil those experiences. But you don't have to because it's a choice. So considering that people judge based on what they can't see It is really everything in us that what we can show to somebody. Okay. Those prints may never become visible because we have a choice if we want to share those with people. And the other thing is that they also can't see the impact that you've had on others. And so I was just speaking before the event started, some of those experiences that we have, whether it's in college or just in our life, there's invisible prints that people have left behind that they don't know that they did, but there is that impressed moment that is part of you. All of this is just so exciting. Okay.
Yes.
So there's a category of these invisible prints that are revealed through self-reflection. And that's the other part that's really important, because we can go through life with invisible prints, whether it's invisible prints that have been impressed upon us or prints that we've impressed upon somebody else that's invisible. So self-reflection is my idea of magnesium powder. So when I think about reflecting on my experiences, that's when I uncover these invisible impressions and make them visible. So an example of a latent print that was invisible is my oldest son. When he was 6 years old, he wanted a hula hoop. And he was begging for a hula hoop. And I had no idea why he needed a hula hoop, where he was getting this from. I didn't think he needed a hula hoop, but as moms or aunts, whoever, we know that when kids decide they want something, they can pester you pretty good until they get it. And so finally, I went out and bought him a hula hoop. Now, my son practiced that hula hoop every day. And for all of us who have used hula hoops or heard them, hearing that bean go around the hula hoop, gradually, right? And then all of a sudden it is going around, right? So Tanner practiced that hula hoop every day, every single day once I bought it for him. Inside the house, outside the house, everywhere. So a few weeks later, we had a planned family vacation to Disneyland. So we're walking in the park, I got my boys, we're going back to It's a Small World because that's their favorite, right, of all time. And then right to the left of us, the Disney employees are just starting to put together a hula hoop contest. And my son won the hula hoop contest that day. So my first thought was, I am the coolest and the best mom ever, right? I got my son a hula hoop. But it was until later that I realized that it wasn't about buying a toy. It was giving him the opportunity to develop skills and confidence in his abilities, to train and practice for something that would turn out to be so important to him, and then to get recognized at Disneyland. Like, how cool is that, right? Okay. So a little bit of that, self-reflection sprinkled on that. So let's talk about the visible prints. This impressed print right here, made in soft material or tissue by pressing down the finger or hand. I think about Play-Doh when I think about this soft molded material. And so there is some up here for you guys to take if you want to when you're leaving. But I would encourage you to even smell it, okay? Because this, to me, is an impressed moment. Like, I smell this Play-Doh, and I think about the moment, what I was doing when I was playing with Play-Doh, right? And just the freedom and the creativity and everything that comes with that. And somehow that gets lost. So, make sure you grab a little bit of Play-Doh. So, impressed moments. I know most of you have life coaches, you have mentors, you have somebody that you go to that you trust and that you speak to. And it's usually a close friend or a group of friends, people you feel comfortable seeking guidance from, people that you may get coaching from. And so this impressive print that's visible, I feel it inside. I feel it inside, like it's growing, it's molding, I'm improving, I'm becoming a better person, I'm becoming who I'm supposed to be, who I was always supposed to be. It's that impression that is impressed. So I want you guys to feel that inside of here. When I think about that, applying to our mentors, our friends, our coaches, our life coaches, it's not just those moments that we're growing and molding from that experience with them, what they give to us, but I love being a mentor because of what I get from the people that I coach and their experiences leave impressed moments where it continues to grow and mold who I am. That inside feeling that I love that sparks joy, if I can use that term.
Of course you can.
So, let's see here. It's just not my own fingerprint story. It's also those fingerprints that have been impressed upon me by my leaders, by my friends, experiences and impressed moments that guided me through my development and continue to guide me through my development. It's also the visible imprints, impressions when we're listening to people, not just talking, but listening and how that molds us, how it leaves that impressed print on the inside of us. Let's see. Okay. So it's also workshops like these that we love, the number 7 workshop, and it's training opportunities. And you know, a couple years ago, I was reintroduced to my cousin Drew. I went out to Iowa to visit. That's where I was born and raised. But I hadn't been out to Iowa for years and years. And I hadn't seen Drew for 30 years. And that moment of going back was some good impressed moments, imprints that were left behind and continue to be developed because it has brought us back together. And we don't go days without Snapchatting each other. I mean, there's been hikes I've been on. He's been with me through Snapchat. Very supportive. But when I was out there, he was, the first time I was out there, he was a training fireman. So he was part of the training classes and stuff, and now he's the chief, so he must have done a good job because he has been promoted. But he was telling me that every Wednesday he's tasked with holding a fire meeting for his employees. First Wednesday of the month is truck maintenance. The second Wednesday they tour a factory or a building and they increase their knowledge of their job. They familiarize themselves with different locations that they oversee. The third Wednesday is a hands-on training. The fourth is a live burning, and if there's a fifth Wednesday, it's their free spot on their bingo card, and they get to choose whatever they want to practice. So I was out there in January and got to attend my first fire meeting. I was like a special fireman. I was observing. They thought that I was applying, but I was just observing.
I bet there was a lot of observing.
There was a lot.
In that
I was taking on those impressed moments, right? And so when I was there for that fire meeting, they were using tools to help develop their skills. And so they had like an oversized Jenga game, and they were using the jaws of life to move those pieces of wood around. They used the jaws of life to have an egg carrying contest with raw eggs to see if any eggs would be broken, which they all were broken, so they obviously need some more help. But those are pretty fragile too, so it should be okay. But the point in that is that same week that I was there, knowing all the training that goes into these firemen, it was winter and there was a 3-year-old that slid onto the ice over the Skunk River. And the parents couldn't get to her because the ice wasn't that frozen and it started cracking under pressure. And so Drew and his firemen went out there to rescue that little girl. They applied what they learned through those fire meetings, and they were able to rescue that little girl. Now, the other thing to think about is when we're thinking about our impressions and our fingerprints, the mom and the dad of that little girl, if any of us can imagine our 3-year-old daughter or kid or anybody, even a dog, out 100 feet onto the middle of this frozen lake with the chance of drowning, going under the ice, she remained completely calm. And because she remained completely calm, her 3-year-old daughter didn't know that she was in danger and was able to stay completely calm until those firemen were able to pull her back to shore. And then the mom broke down, and then the daughter cried. But the importance is thinking about when things are stressful and chaotic, when we overreact and when we let all those emotions get to us, all it could accomplish is disaster. But if we stay mindful of those emotions and feelings and keep our head on our shoulders, it's okay to break down, but just be mindful of the importance of how you're feeling in those impressed moments, because that story left an impressed moment for me. So, let's see. Okay, there's lots of opportunities for us to be impressed upon, lots of opportunities even today. And so because we have the opportunity to be impressed upon, there's just as many opportunities for us to impress upon other people that we come in contact with. But in my mind, my relationships that I connected to, how important it was that I treat them and how I speak to them, how I view them, because relationships have been important for me through my whole life. Positive and strong relationships are a key to having a great life. But in my mind, my relationships were my stakeholders, my employees, my customers, my neighbors, my friends. And the thing I realized when I was back in Iowa with my parents, we were at Dick's Sporting Goods, and we were getting ready for the big Iowa Hawkeye game. And so I had to get my Hawkeye gear, go shopping. Now my parents are quick shoppers. I need to make sure that I touch and feel everything and make sure I'm comfortable with my merchandise. And so I was like, they were finished much earlier than I was. So I said, go ahead and go out to the car, and I'll meet you out there shortly. So I got my stuff. I was going through the cashier line, and there were 3 cashiers. And the cashier I went to, she said, "Oh, did you graduate from are you a Hawkeye fan?" And I said, "No, I actually live in Utah, but I was born here, and I just really like the Iowa Hawkeyes." And so I said, "I'm actually from Utah." And she said, "Oh, I just met the cutest couple from Utah. They were so nice." And I was like, those would be my parents. And so what that realized for me is that I have always been thinking how important relationships are, but they're relationships that I place the importance on, not the ones that we have no idea who those are. And in that moment that my parents were kind to that cashier, and they're always kind, but they represented Utah. In those few moments, they represented Utah. They represented a group of people. And my parents didn't know what impression they left behind. It was invisible to them, but I sprinkled it with some magnesium powder here, and they realized the impact that they had in just those few moments of interaction with that cashier. So, it's about being present in the moment, because there's opportunities every day for us to listen, to grow, and we miss those opportunities when we aren't present in the moment. Now, the patent print is visible immediately on the surface. The patent print is recognition. Think about that as a pat on the back. It's a patent print. Like, give yourself a pat on the back. Now, a patent print can be a bonus check. It can be buying a new purse with that bonus check, or a video game with that bonus check. It can be a certificate, but that purse, you don't buy one purse and have that the rest of your life. You generally beat a video game. And so a patent print can fade over time. So when you immediately have that visible impression, that moment of recognition, the thank you, the recognition, your video game has now been beat. Your purse has now gone on to something else, and we lose this. So just considering that those visible impressions won't be with us forever. They will fade and disappear. Now, workshops like these, being present in the moment, impressed upon by unknown relationships. Now, I want to say that one of these other workshops that you've had with Stacy Burnell and her little lesson of badassery. I loved that workshop. I had no idea the impressed moments that would be left behind for me. And I have to be honest and say, I was looking so forward to the presentation, and I got so much from the presentation. And part of the presentation was having these envelopes on our chairs. And at the end of the workshop, we were told to open it and that something was manifesting inside of here. And whether it was for us or for somebody else. Okay, I've been going through a lot of stuff, right? So I look at this envelope and I'm like, oh, I'm here because of this envelope right here. This envelope is everything to me. I cannot wait to open it. And I opened it and I was disappointed. I was so disappointed. Now later that day, I found myself sitting on a couch with my second mom, Patty, and talking to her about life, everything that was going on. 7-year-old Benjamin, who I had never met before, was in the back room. His mom has a couple kids, and they come over every Wednesday for the last couple years, and Patty kind of helps be a grandmother to them. And so 7-year-old Benjamin, he came running out. I didn't know who he was. He just came running out, came straight over to me, and he said, I have to tell you, I had a good day. And I was like, Benjamin, that's so kind. That's so good. I love it when we have good days. It just makes us happy, doesn't it? And he goes, it was a good day. I have to tell you, it was a good day. Mm-hmm. And then the mom was like, thank you for talking to him. And she took him back into the playroom. Now, the mom has 2 autistic children, 2 others that haven't been officially diagnosed, and a husband that was recently diagnosed with autism. And if you know Stacy has a child with autism. Mm-hmm. She spoke to us about that a little bit in her presentation and an event that she was planning for. And so I thought, at the time that I was sitting there, it didn't even connect to anything because I hadn't uncovered it yet. The next morning, I woke up, and immediately as I woke up, I started crying. I started crying because that magnesium powder is what woke me up. And I thought about Benjamin, and I thought about his words to me to say, I had a good day. And I went and I pulled out my envelope. Focus on the good. Focus on the good. And I knew in that moment that this was for me, but it wasn't time for me to understand everything that was tied to this. And it did require a 7-year-old autistic child to kind of beat it into my head to focus on the good. And so although there are challenges in my life, oops, sorry about that.
No, you're good.
Focus
on the good, girl.
Focus on the good. It's good enough. So she has 4 boys ranging from 7 to 13. So when I realized that impressed moment, the invisible turned visible, it gave me an opportunity to reach out to her and share everything that Stacy was sharing with us and that event that was coming up. And so these workshops are so valuable when we think about impressed moments and the fingerprints that we leave behind, both visible and invisible. We are here, whether it's to help us or whether it's to help other people that we meet today or tomorrow or next year. We always have an opportunity to make a difference. And it's about being present in the moment. It is about self-reflection. It's about self-development and that positive thinking about everything that we come in contact with. Oh my gosh, that see the good it just filled my heart in that moment of opening that envelope to see, despite everything that we go through that's challenging, that may hurt our heart or hurt our soul a little bit, to be mindful of all the things that I have in my life and all the things that you have in your lives, filled with joy and love and hope. And that's important for us to never forget. My fingerprint story is filled with impressions, writing a story, pages after pages, chapters after chapter. And my dad is a fabulous storyteller. And I was telling him, I wanted to write a book, and he said one day he's going to write a book. And he said his book is going to be titled Memories from an Old Fart, Nothing But Gas. So, which just goes with my dad's personality. But when he said that, he shared that when he was young, he was on the farm with his grandfather, which would be my great-grandfather. and he was riding the tractor. They were tilling the farm, and my great-grandfather stopped, and he pulled my dad off the tractor, and he said, "Lyle, do you see that dung beetle rolling around in the ground right there?" And my dad said, "Yeah." And he said, "Don't ever be a dung beetle." And that story that he shared with me is an impressed moment that is now part of my own story. And it's about not being that dung beetle, but taking opportunities to make a difference. It's about living an intentional life and being mindful of our actions and our interactions and what that does for us and for others. For me, it's finding opportunities to make a difference, finding opportunities like in these workshops. They just make my heart joyful to be able to talk about these things, because considering your fingerprints, the invisible and visible impressions that we leave behind, it's not just that they can leave an impression behind, but they will. They will leave an impression behind. It's amazing to consider all the prints left behind from other people to be impressed upon to others. And there are times that I think about my mentor, Beverly, which some of you may know. She told me, "Don't forget about your customer." That was like something she just pounded inside of me. Don't forget your customer. And that is now a part of my fingerprint story, is to not forget the customer. And it's words of wisdom that I share with others. Now, they may think that it's my impression that's being left behind. It's Beverly's impression. Nobody knows that. But think about all the impressions that you leave behind that you may not know about, that you pass on to other people, and those people pass on to other people. Being present in the moment, being impressed by those moments that we're impressed upon, and those moments that we impress upon others. With each visible and invisible print, there's an opportunity for growth, and who we are will evolve while staying true to ourselves. Because we all have core values. We all have something that we believe in, something that defines who we are. And for me, personally, being a leader, I always was able to do a good job. And then I got to this advanced level, and it was in headquarters. Headquarters is a scary word anyway. But you get to headquarters, and I started questioning who I am, and am I supposed to be in headquarters? Like, I was good here, but now I'm up here, and what does that mean? And I was talking to my mentor, and I said, I think I need to change who I am. Do I need to start yelling? Do I need to raise my voice to be heard? Am I supposed to change as I advance in life, or as I advance in my career? Am I supposed to change? And she said, no. The reason why you're in this position is because of what you've demonstrated, because of who you are, because of what you've proven. And so it is an impressed moment for me that I am who I am. I have core values, and I don't need to change to, like, I'll take feedback for improvement, but I don't need to change who I am to be who I am and to be successful. Being true to yourself. It's the significant moments impressed upon me, a visible print. Those words were a visible print for me. And it's something that I pass on now to other people too. Don't change who you are. Take feedback, improve, self-develop, but don't change who you are. It's a story of arches, loops, and whirls. I started out by saying our fingerprints are arches, loops, or whirls. But when we think about the potential that we have every day, all the people that we come in contact with, these impressed moments, that's that soft feeling, that gushy warmness in here that's being molded and growing as we continue to develop ourselves and be who we are supposed to be. It's arches, loops, and whirls. Mm-hmm. Arches, loops, and whirls. So it really takes, when you consider the three impressions, the latent, the impressed, and the patent, this latent print is invisible. So it is only made visible through self-reflection or sharing, and we don't have to do that. We have a choice. We don't have to do that. Now, this one is visible through recognition, but it fades over time. It's not necessarily permanent. And so it really takes both the latent and the patent prints, the invisible and visible, to build who we are. And it's the moments and experiences impressed upon us through the invisible and visible impressions, combined with self-reflection, combined with self-development, that leads us to emotional intelligence, that leads us to becoming who we are, to develop this impressed print. It's a combination of both of these that's this impressed print. So now the impressed print that's visible, that's that soft molded material inside of ourselves, it's not just that impression. We become our impressed version of ourselves. We interact and have the opportunity to make a difference every day. And so with self-reflection and emotional intelligence, we are our impressions. We are a fingerprint story. I am my fingerprint story. You each have your own fingerprint story. Because you have a choice of leaving those invisible or making a choice to make a difference. And I can promise you, if you go to my house and we go back to this cement, those fingerprints, those handprints are there still. They haven't changed. They haven't gotten bigger. They haven't gotten smaller. They haven't disappeared. They're still there. But we have an opportunity to change. We have an opportunity to grow and develop. And like I said at the beginning, one of these handprints isn't there anymore, and that's a good thing. But we have an opportunity. I am my fingerprint story. We leave visible and invisible prints behind throughout various moments of the day, all the time, every moment of the day, whether it's us interacting with someone or being impressed upon by somebody else. We influence thoughts, we influence emotions, and we make a difference because what we do matters, and because what we say matters, and because who we are matters. Now, as a manager over quality, I tell my staff that they represent quality. Their face, their interactions, their emails represents quality. They're leaving an impression behind. They're leaving a print behind about what quality is. As realtors, as business owners, you leave an impression behind. The people that work for you, also leave an impression behind about your business. Oh, sorry, it keeps going down. My fingerprint is leadership because I leave a print on current and future leaders. And we think about that too. I know a lot of you are realtors. You think about when you're out there and there's people that aren't a realtor, but your interaction with them could create more realtors. Our interactions as leaders, we're leaders in every position that we have as moms, as women, as men. We are leaders too, and we're starting an example, and we're sharing that, and we're being empowered by that. These prints we leave behind are individual impressions. They are built into chapters, and they tell a story about an individual. They tell a story about a group of people or an organization. And when you think about the prints you leave behind about others, so if you're talking about other people, it may not be so positive. That actually is leaving behind an impression on you about who you are. So be cautious about our fingerprints that we leave behind, because the prints we leave behind start the story about ourselves. And I want to be accountable to my story. I want to take ownership of my story, just like I know all of you do too. I am defined by experiences, I'm impressed upon by moments, and there are moments impressed upon by me, and I am my fingerprint story. You are your fingerprint story. So again, look at your fingerprints. A pattern of tiny ridges comprised of arches, loops, and whorls. Our fingerprints are unique, and what we do matters. The impressions we leave behind can be rushed, they can be smudged, they can be careless, we can be distracted, or we can leave impressions behind with care, with purpose, and with mindful intent. We are significant in the moments that are impressed upon us and the moments that we impress upon others. Now I have this poem that I found just today, and I love it. It's by Steve Maraboli, and he's a speaker, and it's called Dare to Be. Has anybody heard this before? I think it just fits in nicely when we think about our impressions. When a new day begins, dare to smile gratefully. When there is darkness, dare to be the first to shine a light. When there is injustice, dare to be the first to condemn it. When something seems difficult, dare to do it anyway. When life seems to beat you down, dare to fight back. When there seems to be no hope, dare to find some. When you're feeling tired, dare to keep going. And when times are tough, dare to be tougher. When love hurts you, dare to love again. When someone is hurting, dare to help them heal. When another is lost, dare to help them find the way. When a friend falls, dare to be the first to extend a hand. When you cross paths with another, dare to make them smile. When you feel great, dare to help someone else feel great too. And when the day has ended, dare to feel as if you've done your best, and dare to be the best you can. So if nothing else, think about your fingerprints. Consider the prints you leave behind, and consider the significant impact of your fingerprint story, because it is your story to tell. I love you all.
Good God. Oh my God, that was beautiful. I think we got to give it up again. I don't think there's a dry eye in here, is there? If you have a dry eye, you're not paying attention. No, I'm just kidding. That was absolutely beautiful. And I think, when I developed the Co-Creating a Beautiful Life series and workshops, it was exactly for that. It was to create a space where you all know that you're loved, and to know that you're accepted, and to know that you can show up in any way, shape, or form. No matter if you're the one leaving a good impression or a bad impression, you're still worthy, and you still are enough. And I think that's a good thing to say is, everywhere we go, we do leave an impression, both on ourselves, because sometimes we can do something that maybe we're not proud of, and we're leaving an impression within ourselves that, hey, maybe I can learn from that. And next time I go out and I get put in that position, I can show up better. Mm-hmm. And I think, these are here. I've created this because I've ran into beautiful people like Tina in my life that have such a beautiful impression that they have left on me, that I knew that other people needed to hear their stories, to be able to help them accept themselves, to help them pay it forward and create that ripple effect throughout our community that I love so much, to help evolve into the best selves of who we were meant to be. So thank you guys for coming. Thank you for taking this opportunity to learn from some of the most beautiful beings in the world. And thank you to Tina once again, because this is just amazing.